Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen, and I'm here with Dean McMurray. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today, and we have a couple of things planned for you today. We're going to be answering a listener inquiry, and we're also going to talk about a timely topic from a vibrational perspective because we are recording this in January 2021, and as anyone who is paying any attention to anything knows these days, once again, we have yet another topic that is making life difficult for people to deal with. There was COVID, there was the economy, there was racial tensions, and now we've got all this stuff leading up to the inauguration, and it's just been one thing after another. So we're not going to talk about the politics of it, but we are going to talk about the vibration of it and come up with some ideas about what to do with it. So it's going to be a good show. But we're going to start off with a question from a listener who is a regular listener. Her name is Sarah. And by the way, Dean, she is very glad that you are on the program. So you have your...
Well, thank you, Sarah. Thanks for listening.
You have a vote of confidence there. That's good. She's also responding to the conversations we had on Friday with Keiko. Keiko was a wonderful guest who joined us on Friday.
Wasn't she? Happy clappy.
Boy, she is just, yeah.
I love it. I still remember it.
Well, last week we had Serenity Sam, who
Serenity,
yeah. Everybody has kind of agreed that Serenity Sam had the wrong handle because she should be like Skyrocket Sam or Supersonic Sam because she's just. Whereas Keiko was very high energy, but she was more of like a placid high energy. So people have different, they have different vibes. But
where do you find these great guests there, Walt?
I use the law of attraction. They come find me.
There you go.
I mean, seriously, it's the best way to do it.
I love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So anyway, here's what Sarah had to write. She says, thanks so much for the info on ultrasonic brushing. I was telling people about the ultrasonic toothbrush I use. Okay. And for asking my question to Keiko. She says, I'm very grateful for her response. I still have to figure out what I'll do with the info, but it is a great stepping stone. And speaking of figuring it out, I struggle to pinpoint the gift I have that it is my purpose to provide the world with and how to go about doing that. I like my current job, but I'm wondering if that is the way or if I should cut hours and practice my gifts next to it once I'm up to speed or switch professional activities altogether. I love that Dean has a weekly spot on the show, so I would so much appreciate his input on this. So what do you think, Dean? Any ideas? Are you getting anything about that?
Yeah. So let me ask real quick, a little bit of clarification. Did she already say that she's aware of her gifts or she's looking to see what those are specifically?
I'm trying to remember the conversation specifically from Friday, but I think in general, yes, she is aware of what the gifts are. She's trying to figure out what to do.
Right. Whether she should start stepping into that.
Well, right.
Here's what I would say is a blind psychic is going to tell you this.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. You got to define your terms here. What do you mean a blind psychic?
That's it's like anybody can tell you that this is, of course you should develop them. Why wouldn't you develop your gifts? Because really for Sarah, you're denying the world don't be selfish with your abilities. Share that, whether it's in a business aspect or whatever. But if you need to start developing them now to get to the point of working with folks, then do what you need to do. That's what I would share. And in a sense of, a Deanism, I'll call it, is even a blind psychic would tell you, get out there, do it. Of course. Yes. Develop those abilities because the world needs you, not just, there's millions of Sarahs out there and Phils and Jims and, Karens and whomever that have these awesome abilities. Develop them. Why are you being selfish with them? A lot of fear, whatever, but that's okay. But I would urge you to start developing them now. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to quit your job and, get an office space and do readings or healings or whatever it is. No, it doesn't. You can do your traditional 9 to 5 and do this, as a side thing or whatever you want to do. But here's what I'd share. Start developing it now, because however long it takes you to get to the point to start providing those services or those abilities to Joe Public, then, that's the world needs you, Sarah. So, That's what I would share. And intuitively, I can feel that in my heart. I can feel the pulling. But I put it in my my own words and my own spin. Though is of course you should. You know, but I know sometimes like should I? In the beginning, it's always kind of like should I or should I stay the course and then maybe down the road just make the complete transfer. No, start today. Start where you are. Right. It's like why wait? You can do you can start where you are, even if it's out of your, I don't know, out of your basement or out of your closet, or I don't know what you do, but or what you're going to provide, but start today. So it's going to
I like
change,
that.
manifest with time, but yeah, start today.
I also like the fact that you have Deanisms, because that fits into a trend that we have here. Dan Mangana, Dan, who does the Thursday show with me, he does Dangents. So,
Oh,
it's
tangents.
it's appropriate that we also have a Deanism. That's really
Well,
cool. I like that.
well, I over the years I've always said, in my language, not like I've invented my own language, but somebody years ago said, Dean, you're kind of like the Mike Rowe of psychic mediums. And I was like, how is that? And they were like, well, you're not really flowery, and it's, and maybe not so eloquent, and I was like, hey, now, but they said, you just tell it down and dirty, kind of, in a sense, upfront and kind of blunt, but you do it in your own way. And I was like, oh, thanks, I think, so
I think I challenged that one, by the way, the one where they said that you aren't eloquent. I think you're very eloquent. I'd like to know where
well,
they're getting that from. I mean,
well,
just take the psychic part away. What are you talking about, guys?
well, you know what? I think we're all eloquent in our own way, right? We have our own energy signature and convey things the way that they need to be conveyed in our own isms, if you will. We
Maybe
have
the
our
ones who
own.
say that you're not eloquent need to become more eloquent. I mean, maybe it's just like a mirror thing,
Perhaps I don't know. I'm lost for words. See what happens?
Yes, right. The one thing an eloquent person does not want to be. Yes.
Right. Right.
That's good stuff, though. I like that. I'll actually throw in something too, because I agree very much with what you said to Sarah. And I'll add in, you don't have to figure out when you're going to quit your job. That's really not required at all. All you really have to do is do like Dean said, go for it, develop it. You'll get the signals that come along are pretty loud and clear.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. I was never really good at intuitive reading, reading myself inside, getting internal signals. And what I found is, as I was developing the show, as I was trying to figure out, at one point I was doing it once a week. Do I do it, once a day? At one point I tried to do it twice a day. The signals weren't hard to read. They actually came pretty clearly, so that even somebody as dumb and blind as me could see them. So don't worry about what the signals are. They're going to come real clear. All you have to do is just develop the talent, and they'll come. I mean, it's like Dean said, where do I get the great guests from? I just kept doing the stuff and the great guests showed up. I mean, it's literally that simple.
Right.
There was nothing complex going on there.
It's going to change over time too, right? From what you start to do is like, is this it? Is this what I'm going to be doing until I feel like it's time to do something else? No, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, because it's going to change. It's going to evolve and manifest into something bigger and cooler. And I mean, and it's just that, I don't know. It changes, and it's cool. To be a part.
I think one of the biggest things we deal with, no matter what our particular talents are, or what I'll even term it as our passions, because I think actually following the passion is even more important. Whatever the passion is, it almost doesn't even matter. What matters is actually following through on it, because we can kind of get all wrapped up in, oh God, I'm not sure if I know I like this thing, but should I really do that? Or maybe I should focus on this other thing. We can tie ourselves in knots doing that kind of thing. It's at that point, it's almost better with just like, fish or cut bait, do something.
Right. Yeah. And we get in this analysis paralysis, or at least I did.
Yep. Oh, me too.
And I got to figure out, I got to get ready to get ready to get ready. And it would drive my wife absolutely nuts. She was like, you don't need to be doing that. Just start. And I was like, but how do I start I got to know the why or the how. And they were like, she was like, no, you don't. Just
Actually, what I've learned on that particular point right there, the idea of having to know the how and the why, what I have since learned is that what I really need to know is how do I feel about it. If I'm feeling good, that's the signal to hit the gas pedal.
just to go.
If I'm not feeling good, that's the signal to hit the brake. And it's really that simple. You just either you're feeling good or you're not feeling good. If you're not feeling good, I wouldn't do anything if I'm not feeling good. If I'm not feeling good, I'm taking a break. I'm going in the back room lying down, because anything I do at that point is going to be bad anyway, right?
Right.
But if I'm feeling good, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's going to come out great because I'm feeling good.
Right.
It's that straightforward.
Well, and that's the thing, because you're in alignment with the vibrational energy of whatever event or whatever you're doing, and you're just following that, right? And when you feel that connection, it's like, ooh, hammer down, let's go, let's, and make up for lost time. Otherwise, it's a broken connection, right? That's what we're feeling. And it's like, oops, something's not in alignment. Either I'm not understanding, or the direction I'm trying to go isn't in alignment with my highest good or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Or my goals. And so, trusting the intuitive urge or pull or push, whatever sensations that you're getting, is trusting them. Again, trusting your intuition. What is it sending you? And, following that divine breadcrumb trail, if you will, and where's it leading you? Where do you want to go? But the biggest thing is that delay piece, I think, is huge. If I went back and talked to myself many years ago, I was just like, I learned so many things. I just look back and going, wow, there's some things that I was just pretty hard-headed on, and this round peg must go in the square hole. It must, and I just couldn't understand. And then finally it was just like, oh, like the angels came down and said, snap out of it, stupid. It's like, it's like,
well, in my case, it wasn't an angel; it was a wife, actually. Because what happened is my wife came over when I would be at my lowest point. I'd literally be lying down on the couch. She'd come over, straddle my waist, grab me by the t-shirt, shake the t-shirt, and say exactly those words: "Snap out of it." And it worked. It worked really, really well, because basically, she made me do the one thing I needed to do more than anything else, and that was to laugh out loud, just to release all that junk that I had been building up. And it worked. It worked great. So
we need those angels on our shoulder every once in a while, right?
We do.
Or shake us out of our own waist, right? To shake us out of our own funk, I think.
Right.
So yeah, I love that. So
actually, this is a kind of a nice segue into what you and I agreed to talk about as our main topic today, because we have a lot of opportunity with what's going on right now. It's political world.
Yes,
that is just it's knocking people for a loop. And I'm constantly reminded, particularly now, day to day, minute by minute, practically, all the different ways that I am being encouraged by all the outside influences to distract myself from that in alignment stance and get really down and dirty into the low vibration stuff. And that's what's happening with a lot of people. How many people are in low vibe right now? Everybody raise your hand. Okay. Okay. Yeah. You can all put all of you can put your hands up. Go ahead. Right. It's okay.
Even you in the back.
Yeah. You in the back. I saw you.
Right.
But it's true. And it's like, this has been a whole series of these things over the last year. There was COVID, there was the race stuff, there was the economy. It was like one thing after another. And here we have yet another thing coming to us, which I guess I can't say is terribly surprising. What we're describing is a downward spiral. Isn't that what that really amounts to? There's like this societal wide downward spiral that's been going on. And so if there's a better time to focus attention on what it takes to climb out of a downward spiral, I'm not sure what it would be than when you're in a downward spiral. Pretty good time to actually look at it.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to do it anytime, why not then?
Right. When the vibration is really low and heavy, right? But yeah, regardless of what actions or events are going on around you, and of course we're talking about the political climate right now, but not focusing on the political aspect or what's happening, but more the how we are showing up vibrationally
Right.
to those events. Like, how is it making us feel? How are other people around us making us feel? And how are we showing up? How are we reacting? And what are we doing about that? Because that is the one thing every single one of us on this planet can take ownership for,
Yes.
is how we show up in our actions, you know, as we do this. It's not saying that you need to come to allegiance to XYZ, whatever organization. Don't care about that. It's about how you are vibrationally and how we are as a collective, the collective energy, right? As a planet. And regardless, I think when you talked about, Walt, the downward spiral trend, right? And
Hmm.
people get in this thinking of, oh my God, the end is near, or oh my God, this, you know, and regardless if something happens or not, regardless of what that is, I'm not going to put a name to it because there's so many things. However, is again, how are we, you know, how are we feeling about that, and how how do we want to feel? So it's usually conversely, or you know, it's out of alignment. In fact, this afternoon I went to the chiropractor, right? And he put me back into alignment, my physical body.
Ah,
Think about your energetic body. It's out of alignment with, you know, the consciousness that's coming into us, and saying, you know, how do we want to feel? How do we want to show up, and where are we currently? Because a lot of times all this stuff around us is bringing up all this fear, anger, anxiety. We talked about the trends, Walt, you and I talked about the escalating trends of suicide, right? It's
yeah.
been high anyways, but even during the pandemic, and now with all this other stuff going on, I mean, suicide rates are climbing. And unfortunately, and I don't have the national figures at my fingertips. I don't really, you know what the accurate number is per se, but I know it's higher than it has been. And unfortunately, an alarming number of those suicide numbers are start are statistically children as well, and which is really alarming as well. I mean, anybody taking their life is sad. And it's like, okay, so and maybe it's not a teen or a child watching this program right now. Maybe it's a parent. How do you parent a teen feeling all of the, you know, the challenges of being a teen plus during this time? I got a very empathic 14-year-old female in my home. My
Mm.
daughter is super psychic, super intuitive, but just a sponge when it comes to being an empath. And there's a lot of times that my wife and I worry about her, how she is, her mental well-being just as parents, right? Like, how do we even not only show up personally for ourselves in the world, but, you know, to help her navigate and to help guide her as a parent.
Yeah.
And you know, it comes back to some of those very basic principles of, you know, becoming self-aware. How are you feeling in this moment? And not the no bullshit, you know, um, as uh, as our buddy would say, the hippie shit, right? It's like to really
Chief
coming.
Harold Peck. Oh, we
Yeah,
got
there
to
you
do
go.
our little promo there because Chief Harold Peck, that's who you're referring to.
Right?
He's going to
Yep.
be here
Harold.
next Tuesday.
I
He's going
know.
to
I'm
join
excited.
us.
I'm
Yeah.
excited. I had to use the hippie shit term, you know, and that he's
In
got the
his honor.
peckism. He's got the peckism. I got the
Yep.
deanism. We got all the isms. But you know, the thing is, you know, programs such like this, you're finding a space to talk about things that are positive, tools that can impact your life, and you know, trying to remind folks that they have the power within them to change their narrative. through the law of attraction, through whether it's meditation or, whatever you do. Maybe it's yoga or energy work or, something non-traditional, traditional, doesn't matter. But what I'm sharing is that, you are not powerless. You have we all have the ability within us to change the narrative of regardless of where you are in life. And,
Absolutely.
and just,
It's also worth noting, I think, that a big portion of this is the role of response. And oh, it looks like Dean froze up here, so hopefully we'll get him back shortly. But we have at all times the ability to decide what our response to any situation is going to be. That response is something that no one can take away from us. It's something that everyone has the ability to take ownership of. And so as we begin here to talk about, what are the different ways that we can deal with the situation that we're in right now, um, with all the political stuff going on, that is probably the most important tool to recognize and then to start to take advantage and use the fact that we get to decide what our response is going to be at any given time. So if let's say we have a child, to bring up Dean's example, who is having trouble with something, we get to decide how we're going to respond to that child, or vice versa. If we're a child and we're dealing with a parent and the parent is perhaps raging on about something, well, the child has the opportunity to respond. Adult to adult, the same situation occurs. We get to decide what our response is. So the power of the response, going to what Dean was talking about a moment ago, is probably the first tool that we have. It's probably the most important tool that we have. And it's one that we have to take ownership of. Because when we take ownership of our response, Dean, I mean, that's the beginning of
yeah.
that mindfulness you were talking about.
And it sucks to take ownership, doesn't it? It's like, I'm not responsible for that. That's somebody else's.
Yeah, right.
Like, dude, that's yours. That's yours. Take it. It's like, no, I wasn't given that. Well, you might not have been given that, but that emotion, but guess what? You took it on. Now it's yours. So take ownership of it and deal with it, move on. I mean, it's not the end of the day, but it's just a powerful thing when we come to self-awareness and, like you talked about, the ownership and doing work of self or on self. I mean, is a very powerful thing, and it's I think it's really not talked about enough. And I know that the state of where a lot of people are emotionally right now, nobody wants to stir up anything, and it's not about stirring things up. It's just about bringing awareness to where folks are. And if you're not there, that's fine. That's great. But I know there's a lot of people in that boat. I have a lot of friends that are there.
Let's talk
And
about some strategies then for climbing out of
yeah,
that place. And we
great
I
idea.
already named one, the idea of having control. We always get to
Great.
decide what our response in any situation is going to be. So
Yeah.
that's obviously a first step. But what are some of the other things we can do to kind of, get ourselves back into that alignment, to shift things
Mhm.
around in the face of what can seem to be overwhelming at times?
Well, the other thing that I would share is that, you talked about taking ownership, but the other thing that I would share is, just in like social media, how you will take Facebook or even Twitter, for example, we like and dislike things that come across our news feed. So it constructs our virtual world, right? I would
Hmm.
share is that, do the same thing when it, construct those boundaries. And
Mm.
so just like in social media or wherever, it's like there's things that you want blocked from your reality and things that you want in your reality. So I would say is take inventory of who or what is in your reality or in your inner circle that's affecting your energy or your emotions, and are they uplifting you or are they pulling you down? They always say the five people, right? The five influencers that are, are they lifting you up or are they pulling you down? And so take stock of who or what's in your sphere of influence. And if you gotta weed that garden, you know
Read
or
it.
watch some. Yeah, get the hell, like hit the road.
I mean, you
Or
mentioned social media. If there is anything that gives us more tools for
oh
doing that
man,
kind of weeding, I don't know what there is. Because I mean, if you
right,
don't like a conversation that's going on, you can unfollow the conversation. You can
right,
unfollow the person. You can block. You can do all kinds of stuff.
right,
The
right,
tools are there. Use them.
right.
Use them,
Yeah,
and exactly like you were saying, use them with the vibration in mind. What's the vibration of it? Is it
right,
lifting me up or is it pulling me down? If it's
right.
pulling me down, block it for a while. You can always go back later on,
That's
but
right.
block it for a while. If it's pulling you up, watch more of it, do more of it, and get involved with more of it. That's really the best thing to do at any time, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the other thing you talked about too is um, work daily on increasing your personal vibration. I think we
Yes.
can do every one of us. I don't care if you're still wearing this meat suit, right? I think we all have work still to do. If we're still breathing, we still have work left to do on this earth. And I think if we would take more time every day to focus on self, to raise our vibration, take steps, whatever, I don't care what that is, walk in nature, make you know, uh, make a hat or a oh, I'm lost for words here. A Be very deliberate in your actions of maybe trying to find something that lifts you up either emotionally or vibrationally in everything that you do. Right
I
there, by focusing on yourself, is going to, kind of wash over, so to speak, and where you can help other people.
yeah.
We've all met people like that, right? Well, I mean, even I know that you know like, hey, I love this person's energy. And you just feel good when you're around them. Like, hey, I was kind of in a bum mood, but God, I talked to Walt today and I don't know, I just feel all zipped up, and it's just like, they're just such great people, right? I feel so happy clappy. I'm using everybody else's isms today. I
You're
just
liking
love
that one a lot.
right?
You lashed out to that one for the last week. I could tell.
I got my lines up. But what I'm really saying is that there's so many great pieces of people out there uplifting everybody else, and if we take steps ourselves, we can really make a difference. So the old adage, "Be the change you want to see in the world," is no truer time like the present, right?
Boy, that's the truth. That is the truth.
Right.
Something else that I like to do a lot, and I've been using it in the last few days, particularly because of all the craziness going on, is I this was actually suggested to me by a former co-host. Her name is Patty Framo. She was only on the show for 2 or 3 months, but she's wonderful. I love Patty. She works in the field of palliative care, so people who are nearing end of life, and
Sure.
that's a pretty challenging field.
Right.
Um, so it's not surprising she was able to come up with this. Plus, she's also a very empathic person. But she says, just make a list, literally write out a list of all the things, all the processes or activities or whatever you can do that feel good.
Mm,
That way, when you're not feeling good and you can't even think of one to do, you go look at the list. It's
mm,
like, oh, yeah, yeah, I could do that. I hadn't
yeah.
thought of that. In fact, there have been times where I went to look at my list because I literally couldn't think of anything. And I was amazed what was on the list. Like, how did I forget that?
Right.
Because I was in such a low vibe place that you can do that. It's possible to get low vibe enough. You can't see anything good.
Well, you can, right. That's absolutely. We can get in our own funk, right?
Absolutely, we
And
can. Yeah.
yeah. So I
So
want
having
to
that list is valuable. And
right.
I wanted to amplify a little bit on that list too, because not only is it important to have that list available, I have it posted literally, mine is right here on the wall, so I can always look at it whenever I need to. But in addition to having the list, I also really make it a point, and I've been doing it this particular week in a big way. I think a lot of us here in these circles have our daily practices, our things that we do. I usually do them to start my day, to get myself off on the right foot. I have a pre-recorded set of affirmations that I do, and I kind of repeat them back to myself, like, what religion used to call responsive reading. Just
Sure.
echoing back and forth. And then I also have a video. I call it my video vision board that I play. So I have, like, just between those two activities, that's probably about 11 or 12 minutes worth of stuff that I do in the morning. And doing that every morning, I mean, I don't know how to convey how important that's been, other than to say, well, put it this way. There have been some mornings where I didn't actually start with that. I did it later in the morning and I regretted it because
Oh,
that first hour or two was, "Ugh," and then I did the activities and I felt so much better. I said, why didn't you do that when you first woke up, Walt? You know better than this.
took the edge off, did it?
It really does. It does. I think partly because with these daily activities, when we commit to doing them on a daily basis, it's like anything else. The more attention you give to something, the more momentum it develops, right? The more
Right.
the vibration gets bigger and bigger. So that each time I go back to it, it's not like I'm building it from scratch. I'm building it based on yesterday's momentum, which was based on the day before's momentum, and so on and
Mm,
so forth. And then the other thing that I'll do is if I'm getting into a day, I did my morning routine, right? I find that I got that done, got myself off to a good start. Lately, I've been doing a lot of work on the talk that I'm preparing. I want to start doing
right.
public speaking, and there have been a couple times where I was just getting I was getting so wiped out because yeah, I want to get all this stuff in here, and I am getting more ideas about what I want to include and what I don't want to include. But I have so much material here. Where am I going to edit? You can get all wrapped up in all that kind of thing. And a couple times I had to literally just stop and go back and do my morning routine again
Mm,
because I knew that's where the high vibe is.
mm,
In other words, the
that's good.
whole gig here is just to constantly throughout the day be looking for where's my high vibe, where's my high vibe, where's my high vibe, and noticing that's the mindfulness part, noticing when I'm falling into the low vibe, and then especially taking that time to go look for the high vibe. Is there like a pattern here? I think there is. Look for the high vibe. Look for the high vibe. Look
Right.
for the high vibe.
Right. Right. Well, and then the more you repeat that or the more you have that mindset, it's just normal, right? You're always,
Mhm.
it's just constant. It's a muscle memory thing that we used to call in the military.
Exactly.
You do it so much you don't even think about it. It's automatic now, right? It's part
That's
of
the
you.
that's the fun part. That's the cool part because I don't
Right.
get into that deep depression very often anymore.
Right.
Occasionally, but not nearly like it used to be. And if I do end up there, I'm there for 3 minutes maximum, and then I'm out. Whereas before, I mean, well, 10 years ago, I could have fallen into it and been there till next Christmas. It was
Right.
just not a pretty sight.
Right.
Now, because of the daily activities, 3 minutes is unusual. So yeah, it makes a big difference.
Well, good. Good.
What are some of
Well,
your things? What do you do
well,
when you're needing to pick yourself up? Like, do you have a daily routine? What do you do with your
right.
routine?
Well, it starts with 2 beers and an egg, and I pick it up.
I love
Just
it.
kidding. No, I don't drink anymore. I actually don't. But no, I was joking. But for me is if I'm in a really, if you will, a kind of a funk or whatever. One thing that I love to do since the whole pandemic kicked off, or was around March, is actually started messing around with guitar, learning guitar, and
Oh.
so I'll go down and kind of try to strum out some chords and mess
Hmm.
because the vibrationally I can lose myself in the music as
Oh
well.
yeah.
And then also just really being, alone to be quiet with my own, I guess, my own, so I can maybe self analysis, whatever, but just where I can just find a space within myself to let it go because it's just all the noise that it's almost like compounding for me. And I'm like, I just need it to be quiet for 5 minutes so I can find a space within myself to allow it to go. And more often than not, where, it's just like, okay, I feel better. It's like, all right, 5 minutes, good to go. And, shake it off. All right, let's go, ready to go
Yeah.
again. And,
Yeah.
some days we're all human, right? Some days we're going to feel a little fun. It's like, yeah, today feels down or we're feeling the outward, but it's like, I feel that and it doesn't feel good, but it doesn't mean that I'm like curled up in a ball underneath the bed either, right? And
Exactly.
but there's been days in the past where, like you shared, even for you, Walt, is I was close there myself and saying, how do you deal with that? And I there is no one way. There's lots of ways, but you have to
Right.
find out what works for you. And typically what I have found, or what I've been hearing from the field, if you will, from students and clients over the years, is typically they find what doesn't work before they find what works.
Yeah, interesting,
Because
isn't that?
everybody has a fix. And,
Yeah.
it's like, take this pill to lose this fat. Take, it's like, you're doing everything except this one thing that'll change your life. It's like the miracle cure or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
really, we're looking for the pieces, and a lot of times we're missing the narrative because we're looking everywhere except here. We're looking
Yes.
everywhere outside of ourselves, where the true answer is here. I get it. If we have to, if there's something physical we have to take or have, but guess what? It usually starts and ends here. And a lot of times we can't see that, and that's all right. But when we realize it, it's like, oh, I just figured it out. And it's like, oh, the light bulb went on, like, oh my God, nobody told me. And
And of course, by the way, the fact that I was just realizing as you were saying that is we're doing a podcast, which means most of the people can't see us, so they aren't sure what the here was. But the here, you were saying
right.
here and pointing at yourself.
Oh,
You're pointing
sorry.
inside.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, pointing at, starts and ends with ourselves, right? I'm pointing at myself and saying, in that snap of the fingers moment, like, just when people realize it, oh my God, have that come to Jesus moment, if you will. And
Right.
but even if you were to go back in time and tell them maybe a long time ago that, hey, it starts and ends with you, they can't really figure that piece out because they're in that state of awareness. And for whatever reason, they can't quite see that, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why it is so important to start within. I also, by the way, I wanted to make a comment too about the fact that you go play guitar as one of your things to do. And I want to comment on that partly because I used to play guitar. I haven't played in like 20 years or something like that, 30 years probably, but it was one of my favorite things to do. And I realized just now why it was because of the way you said it. The reason it was such an important piece of my life was because when you play a guitar, you are literally creating vibrations. You are literally creating vibrations, and those vibrations are going out into the world, and they're going out into your room. They're going out into your space, and those vibrations are we're not talking about abstract vibrations anymore, right? We're talking about real vibrations. So one of the things that I used to do subconsciously, I didn't really plan it. It's not like I was intending to do it. I found myself playing stuff that was soothing to my soul. It was soothing to my being. And that's basically the way I approached all of my music. Well, now that I don't play guitar anymore, I still do the same thing. So for instance, on my list, I mentioned my list a moment ago of things that I do, when I need to have something to pick
Right.
myself up, I go look at my list. Numbers 3 and 4 on my list include playing music, not playing guitar because I don't play guitar anymore, but
Right.
literally getting out a playlist, on my
Oh,
phone
sure.
and plugging in the phones and just listening to stuff that I find to be high vibrational, because literally music is vibration. I don't know of a more effective way to raise vibration than listening to a vibration you like that feels good to you. It'll pick you up and carry you there almost faster than anything. So I really wanted to emphasize the music thing. I also wanted to throw something else in. Like I said, I've been doing my research for my talk that I'm putting together. And one of the main focuses of that talk is turning out to be the ARAS, the ascending reticular activating system, the part of the brain back here where we do most of the filtering. And the classic example of the filtering is like you go to buy a new car, you buy I don't know, a blue Toyota Prius. And from that point on, all of a sudden you see blue Toyota Priuses everywhere because
Everywhere.
your ARAS is now programmed to filter through anything that's a blue Toyota Prius, but it's still blocking out all of the gray Volkswagens.
Right.
It's just allowing the blue Priuses to come through. And it's a really powerful tool. That's one of the reasons why I included it in my talk. But the thing that I wanted to really emphasize about that tool is we can use that tool. We can put that tool to use with intention. And basically, I mean, the way I like to look at it is this. I believe science says that we have something like 11 million bits of information that comes through our five senses every day. Okay. And our conscious mind can handle 50 of them. So we ignore most of the stuff that comes through our senses. Okay. But that's the filtering aspect. So we can filter stuff out. 4 of the 5 senses go through that ARS. The 5th one doesn't. You know what the 5th one is? It's
No.
smell. Smell bypasses the ARAS. I didn't know that. Smell goes directly to the emotional centers of the brain. So if you want to have a really quick way to get yourself into a better place, identify a smell that you like and go make it. That will pick you up faster than anything else you can possibly do. So if you like the smell of oregano, make something with oregano. I mean, if you like the smell of cheese, do something with cheese, whatever it is, find the smell.
And it makes a lot of sense, right? Because realtors and anybody in retail and those folks, they do a lot of study into the senses, right? And how people buy and the psychology of all that. And you talk about the senses because realtors know that right before they do an open house, an old adage of, hey, get some, bake
cinnamon
some
toast.
Cookies. Yep. Bake some cookies. And so it smells like home, memories of being young, or diffuse essential oils. So where it's like a citrus smell or maybe thing of memories of Christmas or anything that might invoke some, vision of family and warmness. And so absolutely things that even, people that, sell things. So you think of more trendy places like in malls and other shopping centers using the aromatherapy aspect of colognes and perfumes and all these bath and body shops and trendy new hip places that it smells like a perfume bottle broke on the floor, but at the same time it awakens different places within the brain to get it thinking, or the impulse areas. And so absolutely I'm a firm huge big believer in that. I completely believe in that. We're huge believers in essential oils in our home. And we got a whole little the whole little tray of essential oils and diffusers all over the house and wearing them like cologne. And so I completely I'm a big believer in that as well. But
my wife is into the spice candles, so we have spice candles everywhere.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Some of them are lit, some of them are not. Some of these spice candles, you don't have to light them. You just take the cover off, and that's enough.
Strong.
They're
strong,
potent.
Right? Like you want to eat some of them, you're like, God, can I eat this? Right?
Yeah, where's the cinnamon?
It's like, hey, you baking something? It's like, no.
Who brought out the cinnamon toast? I mean, come on.
Right? I know. I love it. I love it. So, but that's great validation that talking about a scent is activating. So, talking about just another great tool to help during these turbulent times, whether, for example, going back to people that deal with anxiety and sensitive people is, just think about my daughter. And one of the things that we got her for Christmas was a weighted blanket. That was another thing. So a sensory aspect, right? The weight of those weighted blankets that are very popular, I guess, with everybody, but to bring comfort or to feel that, to be able to go to sleep quite easier. So there's a lot of things commercially on the market. But understand this, if somebody is out there listening to this right now that's saying, Dean, Walt, I can't afford a weighted blanket, cannot stand scented candles, do not like the oils. I have a cat, so I can't have, certain things. It's like, go back to the basics again. it's remember we talked about in the beginning that it starts and it ends with you.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't cost a dime to sit and meditate. It doesn't cost a dime to do self-reflection, to connect to your higher self or source. It doesn't cost a dime to be self and to what I call psychic self. It's about protecting your energies every time you're going out, as far as creating that translucent energy bubble.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Sure.
so many things that you can do that it's free and to do. So if it's a question about saying, well, as far as getting products, I don't want it, or I don't have the money or resource, whatever, I don't care where you live. You could live in the jungles of Peru. I don't care. It's, maybe the Amazon doesn't deliver there yet. I don't, I don't know, but
Well, I believe the Amazon River runs to the east of that, but that's okay. That's not the Amazon you were talking
wow,
about.
my geography out there. But Peru, Oregon, I don't know. Somebody's like, I love Mexico. I know where that is. But the
That's
thing that
funny.
I'm sharing is that, a lot of times we tend to make excuses for why we can't do something. And I would share that for every excuse, there would be a counter, and just sharing that, we do have the resources within us
We
that we
do.
can certainly, accomplish,
One of
if you
my
truly
favorite
want to
things
do it.
one of my favorite things to do, and I usually do this actually as part of that morning routine where I do the affirmations, is I'll do them in a mirror exercise. And I'm reminded of this because I'm looking in the live stream and I see Janine, hi Janine, and Jenny and Jeffrey's there. And then I'm also seeing Buttonwood Tree. That's my friend Anne Marie McEwen, who is a former co-host here on the show. And her husband Mike, who has also done some shows with me, particularly loves the mirror exercises. That's what made me think of all this. But if you can just do it with a smartphone, that works great. Put the smartphone into selfie mode. You got yourself a mirror. If you don't have a smartphone, get a mirror. Just get a regular mirror. If you're out in the middle of the Amazon, go to the water. The water becomes a mirror. But the point is, use some kind of mirror and talk into the mirror and talk to yourself. Look right into
Right.
your eyes and talk to yourself about how you love yourself and how you feel about yourself. And I don't mean the part that you're not feeling good. I mean the part that you do like, that part, not the other part. Stay away
Right.
from that one. Stay on the part of the thing that you do like. And if you do it, and there goes my video, see if I can get it back. If you do that on a daily basis, I mean, you mentioned the meditation. I find it's even more effective than meditation at clearing the mind. I find it's even more
Sure.
powerful than meditation in terms of getting those old tapes to stop playing.
Sure.
And then once the tapes stop playing, guess what? The mindfulness becomes easier. You don't have to deal with all that junk that keeps playing in the background. I think it's the junk playing in the background that's the hardest
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, the crappy 80s recorded band tape that you
Yeah,
got
yeah.
playing in the background. Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
right. Right. Yeah, I know. It's a challenge for sure. Not saying that it can't be, not saying that it isn't challenging sometimes. I'm just saying it can be done. And for those that really want to change, that's the thing. Again, to really focus on those that really want to change. It can be done regardless of your circumstance where you're at. So, um, and these are just, again, these are some tools that as we transition through these, kind of turbulent times, we're gonna get on the other side of this, and the more tools you have in your toolbox to help you navigate and make things smoother, it's gonna make it a bit, I don't know, how do I want to say, palatable.
Well, sure. I think palatable also comes from deciding what we talked about at the beginning, deciding what barriers, what boundaries to put up. And what that really comes down to is, what am I going to give my attention to? Do I choose to keep giving my attention to that thing that is driving me into the floor with all of my depression? Or do I choose to change the subject? If I choose to stick with all the craziness that's going on, I can pretty much guarantee it's going to continue to lead me down that downward spiral, right? But if I'm willing to change the subject, if I'm willing to shift over to something else, anything else that feels better, just that act of shifting over to that something else, that anything else that feels better, takes my mind off of the taboo subject, that thing that I want to get away from. It's literally that simple. It's so easy to say. I mean, yeah, it's easy to say. It's not easy to do necessarily, but it's worth taking even the smallest step, because I think, you know what I think kills us when we're in that really bad space, Dean? I think we feel like we have to solve the whole thing all at once. All we really have to do is just take one step in the new direction, and then take a second step in the new direction. And if that all that is just focusing on another subject for a moment, you focus on another subject for a moment, and then that leads you to another subject, because that's the way law of attraction works, right? You focus on something, it gives you more of the same. And then one step at a time, you find yourself moving away from all that crazy crap that you're trying to get away from.
Absolutely. Well said. And it's what is what was it, Lao Tzu, or how am I
Lao
pronouncing that?
Tse, yeah.
Yep, there you go. And
Yeah.
it wasn't it written from him that the journey of 1,000 steps began with started with first step or whatever. I'm
like that.
getting it all jacked up, but basically take the first damn step.
Take the first damn step. Yeah. This is the American version.
That's it. The Deanism again. Just
the Deanism,
first
right?
It's like, you're absolutely right though. It's nothing is going to start until you make that, the universe isn't going to co-create with you until you start, making a step in the right direction. And,
but if you do take that step in the right direction, it
then
starts co-creating with you.
We start coming into alignment, right? We start coming into alignment with what we want. And and the universe starts, that law of attraction, the wheels start just to churning. And
it works well too.
It does. It does.
It works great.
But nothing's going to fully manifest the way that we would like it to 110% without some effort on our part.
And yet it's like we were talking about a moment ago. We don't have to solve the whole thing at once. We don't have to eat the entire envelope.
We don't. It's a journey. Good God. It's like,
it's one little step at a time. I mean, that's the Daniel Mangena concept. You do micro shifts, little tiny shifts, little tiny steps. Those little steps make mammoth, just huge differences. I think we talked about this last week, you and I, about the pilots, when commercial pilots are flying. Did we talk about that one last week? I know I talked about it with somebody. Maybe it was not you. I don't remember who I talked about it with.
Sorry.
But the point is, it's not just commercial pilots, military pilots, anybody who flies a plane. They're off course 95% of the time.
Sure. Yeah.
They're constantly having to readjust their attitude, readjust their direction,
right.
The whole thing. They're constantly having to adjust because they're flying a little bit off target. And those little micro shift adjustments are how they get from one end of the continent to the other end of the continent.
Well, and that's the same. That's the same with captains of a ship as well. They're always adjusting for currents, and it's so yeah. I mean, you're always adjusting. That's the same with life, right? We got to go left and we go right, but we're always little shifts left and right and up and down, and but somehow we stay hope to stay on course. So.
I can't remember who posted it. Somebody posted something on Facebook. It was it a cartoon or a video? I think it was a cartoon. Maybe it may have even been just a text description of a guy crossing a street in a crosswalk, and he sees this car starting to come at him. So he goes back the other way, and the car weaves toward him. And he starts to go across, and the car weaves him that way, and finally comes to a stop right there. And the car window goes down, and a squirrel pokes his head out and says, "See, it isn't all that easy, is it?"
Where it's like, which way am I gonna go?
And my response is, well, yeah, of course, it makes total sense to me that a squirrel was driving the car, but
right. But that totally makes sense. I mean, yeah, and and I think we catch ourselves in moments like that in life, right? Like, which way? No, I'm going to go back the other way. Oh, no, I'm going to go back the other. It's like, but yeah.
But that is what life is about. Life is about making those adjustments. And those adjustments really comes down to one thing. Are we making the adjustments from the point of view of trying to maintain alignment? Or are we, or even trying to gain alignment? Or are we trying to prove a point or
Right.
to convince somebody of something or
Right.
change the world or
Right.
all this
Right.
other stuff that's really high energy, low leverage, poor result stuff.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so
Yeah.
what are you going to make the adjustments on? That I think is almost as important a question. What's
Well,
the goal?
well, and the other thing is yeah, and exactly like you shared is, are we making these adjustments in life based off of fear? Are we
Yeah.
making these um, you know, are we basing these decisions or actions based off of, an emotion that is out of control?
Mm.
And I just think about, it would be really cool in my lifetime, um would be to see everybody just kind of very aware of everybody else, just kind of like a global consciousness, so to speak, of that one total essence,
Well,
so to speak.
I think you're getting your wish. It's just that a lot of what people are
That's
seeing, they don't want to
change the channel,
see.
damn it. Change the
Yeah,
channel.
right.
Higher vibration. Higher we're good now. Everybody's sinking in, but let's change everything.
I mean, that's what the internet gives us, isn't it? All of a sudden, we're all connected,
Oh,
no matter where
good
we are around the
Lord.
world.
Like
This
I
falls into the category
eh,
of be careful what you wish for.
I know. Well, and it's like I think I saw that meme about to prove a point that everybody will argue about something, and then they'll post something and saying this is an egg, but it looks like a stone or whatever. So then people can argue, and it's like, really? It's like, is this, I know we can do better as a species. Come on. So, but I don't know, but it's challenging for sure. I think it's challenging for everyone. Um, and I just, I'm also, I'm more excited because opportunities that are presenting themselves for us to do magnificent and great things as a species, as a collective, not just as humans, but animals, everybody else, of where we can really go at this time. We can turn
And it's
something
happening.
that's yeah, slowly, and saying, look beyond all the darkness, look beyond all the ick, and glean all the good things. And I think you talked about it earlier, Walt, is really trying to retrain your mind to look for the joy, look for the positivity in the world,
Yes.
and create a new muscle memory for yourselves. And by doing that, by retraining yourself to find the good through everything else, then you're going to create, in essence, a new reality, because now you're seeing, it's like the aspect of the mind again, right? Like you talked about first time you buy your first vehicle, and like maybe a Volkswagen Bug or whatever, right? And before that you don't notice them, all of a sudden you get it, and now that's all you see, and it's like, oh my
That's right.
god, I don't see all the, yeah, you notice them, but they're not as prevalent. You see everything else more, all the other all the Volkswagen Beetles or whatever. So that's the same thing. All the goodness that you're gonna see, it's gonna jump out. It's like, ooh, there it is. And before it might have been hiding, but now it's, hey, here I am, and it's like, oh my God, it's all around us. We're just not, a lot of people aren't seeing it, or maybe not looking for it. And
Yeah, looking for it. Well, time to
looking,
look for it, guys. That's
that's
exactly what you
right.
need to do. That's the final thought for today. By the way, Chief Harold Peck, joining Dean and I next week. It's going to be a
Woo!
blast
I
watching
look forward to it.
two military guys going at the hippie shit. This is going to be graphic. It's going to be wonderful. So please tune in. Thank you very much, live streamers. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.